Welcome to session 5 of the course of Customer Value Management. Today, we will finish the section about Customer Relationship Management, CRM, and then we move on to questions of pricing. So today I want to focus on 2 points specifically. The first one is how to implement CRM, which relates us to the question of strategic CRM, and in this context also how to take account of new technologies and social media, which brings me to social CRM. That is the first part. And once this is done, I want to spend a little bit time to actually finish the point we started with, which is how can CRM help to create shareholder value and market capitalization? But let's focus on the first point first. I started session 1 by saying that if you ask 10 different people about what they mean by CRM, you sometimes get 10 different answers. And if you look at all the different views that people have about CRM, you can broadly speaking group them into 3 categories. Some people see CRM at the functional level as tools to execute marketing functions more efficiently. For example, marketing campaign management. CRM can help you to send out 500,000 emails to your clients per day. And if you wouldn't have a CRM tool, you probably can only send out 100 emails to your clients per day. The problem with CRM at the functional level is that it only makes things more efficient that you already know how to do. So if we go back to the example, if you do not know how to send out emails, if you are just really bad in writing emails to your customers, then CRM will not help you to get better at this. The only thing that CRM at the functional level will be able to do is to increase your speed, to increase your output in writing emails. But if you are not good at it, this can actually be more harmful than beneficial. And this is one of the reasons why sometimes you may read on the internet or in press that CRM investments into IT, which very often is CRM at the functional level, do not pay back. Well, of course they don't, because if companies do not know what to do regarding CRM after IT, they will still not know, and they just do the things they don't know, and they probably do wrong in a larger scale. A second way to see CRM is to see CRM as a customer-facing level, as a set of activities that are customer-centric and that provide a single view of the customer across all contact channels. This is certainly already better. But what we aim for is to see CRM at the organizational level or strategic level. So for the purpose of the first 5 sections and also for the purpose of the remainder of today, CRM is a set of activities that understands that people are different regarding their value of the firm. Remember session 2, where we talked about the pyramid and that some people are on the top and some are on the bottom. That companies need to treat these people differently depending on their value in order to maximize the value. We talked about loyalty programs, for example, and unprofitable customer management in that context. And that this creates a sustainable competitive advantage, which, if you go back to session 1, you may remember, means creating shareholder value. One way of seeing this is that CRM can be seen on a continuum. You can define CRM very narrow and tactically about the implementation of a specific technology solution. Yes, sure, this is CRM, but it's probably not what you want to do. You can then move a little bit further on the continuum and see CRM as the implementation of a series of customer-oriented solutions. But what you actually want to get to is to see CRM broadly and strategically as a holistic approach to manage customer relationships in order to create shareholder value. There's always this very direct link between what you do on the one side and the creation of shareholder value on the other side. And we talk a little bit more about this in the second half of the class today. Now, if you see CRM very broadly and strategically, you end up with a relatively complicated network in which your CRM strategy needs to be part of. There needs to be a business strategy and a consumer strategy, which we call the strategy development process. That translates into a definition of the value that the customer receives and the value the organization receives. We have talked about the second part a lot when we talked about acquisition and retention. And we will talk about the first part a little bit more in the section of pricing. This then leads to multi-channel integration, all sorts of distribution, either to get the products to customers or to contact the customer, Salesforce, phone, direct marketing. And ultimately, this leads to performance in terms of shareholder value that you need to realize shareholder value results, and that you need to performance monitor, that you need to check. And underlying all of this is this idea of data and the information management process. So if you see CRM from a strategic level, it actually combines all these 5 processes: strategy development, value creation, multi-channel integration, performance assessment, and information management. Another way to see this is to look at CRM strategies and the different components that a CRM strategy has. And there are 3 components that are particularly important. The first one is a customer management orientation. The second is the integration and alignment of organizational processes, and information capture and the alignment of technology. Let's go through each of them now in the following slides. If you want to do CRM, it is really, really central that you have a customer management orientation. And on the right-hand side of this slide, in the right box, you see different ways how you can measure whether you are actually customer management oriented. Do you have a desire to help customers to make good purchase decisions? Do you want to help customers to assess their needs? Do you offer products and services that satisfy those needs? Do you describe the products accurately and without lying to match the customer interests? And do you avoid manipulation and deception? But the important thing is not only that you are customer oriented, but that your whole organization and specifically the top management is. You can only do CRM if you have a top management that believes and is committed to the idea that the customer is in the center of all activities, and even more importantly, that customers are different and need to be treated differently. In session 2, when we talked about the customer pyramid, I said that if you are not willing to treat customers differently, the high CLV ones in a certain way and the low CLV ones or unprofitable ones in another way, then you cannot do CRM, because you just want to treat every customer perfectly and keep every customer happy. You need to realize that people are different, that they need to be treated differently, and all of this having the long-term view of revenues, CLV, customer equity, and ultimately shareholder value in mind. And for that, you need the integration and alignment of organizational processes. You need cooperation. The customer doesn't really care which department in the firm made the mistake. The customer only cares that a mistake happened. So operations and marketing need to collaborate in the new product development process. You need to share information in order to improve models. You need to ensure that information from customer-facing employees is used to guide your strategy. And all these processes and reward schemes and incentivization schemes, they need to be consistent and integrated with each other. And this is very often a key challenge for many firms, because many firms are not set up this way. Firms are very often set up in silos. So there's the management on the top, and you have marketing and finance and human resources, and you consider yourself to be in the marketing department of your company, or in the finance, or in the HR department. But this vertical thinking doesn't make sense in the world of CRM, because in the world of CRM, you need to think horizontally in terms of different segments that bring different value to the company. This idea of organizational silos and silo thinking goes way back. The problem is when organizations grow, strategy often needs to be implemented through different areas. If you are working for a startup that only has 10 employees, there are no silos, because you all sit together around the same table in the same meeting room, you define the strategy and you implement it. If you are working for an international company that has tens of thousands of employees, naturally you need a bit more structure. And this structure is very often reflected in silos through functional areas like marketing, sales, research and development, supply chain management, whatever. And in the moment where you do this, this vertical specialization starts to dominate the mindset of people. You no longer think of yourself as an employee of Air France, you think yourself as an employee of the marketing department of Air France. And this creates silos, because silos can lead to dysfunction because they strongly impact the behavior of their people. They no longer consider the people who work in the finance department of Air France as their colleagues, but in some cases they may consider them as their enemy. And they have to fight against, and they have to fight against another department in order to get budget for them, and that the budget doesn't go to other people. And this thinking is fundamentally not customer relationship management and customer orientation because it thinks vertically and not horizontally. There's a reason for this. It's called social identity theory, that actually you derive a part of your identity based on the department you are in, but it doesn't really solve the issue. One example that has been studied very, very commonly is the conflict between marketing and finance. And you see here a study from 2007 and another study that has been done in 2017, where finance and marketing executives are asked different questions. And you see there's a really, really large gap between what they think the other party does and what they think themselves do. This is just some empirical evidence for this silo thinking that I mentioned. Another thing is, if you ask in a company which department, which silo is responsible for customer experience management, well, 70% of people would probably say it's marketing because they own the customer experience management initiatives. But obviously, customer experience management is not owned by anyone individually. It spans the entire company. It spans the top management who has to send a clear customer-centric vision. It has spent sales because they have to understand customer feedback and share it. It has to span product development because they have to design experience based on that feedback, and so on and so forth. This is one example to show you that classical CRM activities, and customer experience management is one of them, by definition cannot be solved in silos. And only when you have done these 2 points, only when you have established a customer management orientation and an alignment of processes, it makes sense to start talking about IT. Of course, you need IT to collect, store, and process relevant and timely customer information. If you are a large company that has millions of customers, you will not be able to do this using paper and pencil or an Excel sheet. You need a more sophisticated database. And IT is usually helping you to convert data into actionable information. Think on the section where we talked about data mining, where I explained this in a lot of detail. But remember always that IT will not help you to get better unless you already know what you want to do. IT just makes you better knowing that you already know the direction you want to run. If you want to have an analogy, if you're in a forest, a car can help you to get faster out of the forest, but only if you're driving into the right direction. If you are driving into the wrong direction, the car will only get you in a much, much deeper mess because it drives you deeper into the forest. I want to finish this section talking a little bit about social media, because obviously they're a very, very integral part of any CRM strategy. Remember the section on influencer marketing in session 2, where I talked a lot about this. In order to integrate social media or new technologies in general, you need a social CRM strategy. And this is very similar to what I discussed on the earlier slide. Underlying all of this is data and information technology that helps you to understand customers and derive insights. So this is the foundation, the IT and the understanding of customers. On top of it, you have the social CRM strategy. And in the middle, you have your actual CRM strategy, acquire, maintaining and retaining customers. You may remember the dimension of acquisition, development, and retention that we had when we talked about word of mouth. These are the same dimension. And the use of social media, which can be either low or high engagement social media. Obviously, social media can come in different forms. If companies take their advertising spots and put them on YouTube, technically they are using social media, but it's very low engagement. If you post a video on TikTok, but you disable comments, it's very low engagement. This is very different to having a real conversation with your customers and encouraging them probably to produce content themselves or sharing your content. And on the sides of this customer relationship or customer value management strategies, you have the people that need to be empowered and that need to be skillful, and you need to measure the outcomes. So while this may seem very similar to what we discussed at the beginning, there are really some very specific challenges that you have when you're dealing with social media. The first one is the question of how much can you generalize what you learn on social media? Sometimes we make the mistakes that we think if 1,000 people write something on Facebook, this is what all our customers think. But you need to be really, really careful in that, because not all of your customers are actually on social media. So already the sample that is on social media is biased. And even worse, the ones who write, the ones who engage, They decide themselves that they want to write to engage, and that's another bias. They may be particularly satisfied or particularly unsatisfied. And so if you only look at any results that you get from social media, you can very, very rarely generalize them to the entire customer database. So they should maximum seen as indicative. In the logic of qualitative and quantitative research, information that comes from social media, unless it is very, very carefully collected, is more similar to qualitative insights than quantitative insights. Related to this point is a point that we discussed in session 1 when we talked about AI and big data, which is this whole idea of richness and customer privacy. And there is no real answer that we have for this until now. What happens if we can collect data across different applications? If Facebook has data from your phone as well as from your internet usage, or probably even your internet usage on the Facebook site and on other sites, suddenly they can start combining activities across different networks, which gives a much, much more impactful and richer data set than only looking at one application or one site. What happens when there is a data breach? What happens when you over-customize? When you understand the customer so well that the customer feels that you are taking decisions on his or her behalf? And related to this, again, the question of how to analyze and aggregate unstructured data. Social media is very largely at least text and nowadays increasingly image and video based. How do you analyze this? How do you analyze an image? How do you analyze a video? We are starting to make progress on this, but many of these aspects we still don't know. At this point, there is very, very little real practical advice on how you can analyze YouTube videos, for example, in large scale, because we simply don't have the methods to do that. Now, there are lots of different challenges that are related for future research in CRM, and I've written an article about this, how to date your clients in the 21st century. I put it in the supplementary reading in case you want to have a look. This article also summarizes a little bit the whole spirit of this class and the first 5 sessions and how it goes along. And now we move to the next part.